fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you. So glad you can be joining us this evening, whether you're joining us at www.behindenemylinesradio.us, or if you're checking us out on AM radio, FM radio, interweb radio, whatever the case may be, or if we are traveling with you as a podcast, we're glad to be along for the ride, however you're listening to us. We're just glad you're listening to us. Got a jam-packed show this week. Can't even afford to have a guest on. Not because of the budget problem or anything like that. It's not a budget. No. It's a news problem. We were on news overload in the past 7 days since the last show. There has been so much going on. We can't pack it into one show. So we're going to do our best to highlight some of the things that you may not hear in the mainstream. Listen, mainstream media has got news on lock right now. There is so much going on, and there's so much consumption of news going on right now, that we really need to pick and choose our spots here when we're talking about niche media, talking about conservative media, talking about podcasting media, talking about grassroots media. We got to bring you things that you probably haven't seen or you probably haven't thought about. We're going to do our best to bring that to you this week. But there's so much going on. Are you on news overload the way I am? It's gotten to the point where I don't even know if I want to turn on Fox or CNN or MSDNC or, Fox Business, CDNC, whatever you want to call them. They're all out there. There's so many things. Bloomberg News, whatever. Local newspapers, local media. My goodness. Is everybody's head exploding right now? So much going on between the Comey hearing and the fallout from that. Now this week we had the hearing with Jeff Sessions, which we're going to talk a little bit about later on. What in the world is going on? The world is exploding. And for no reason, really. The biggest explosion, actually the biggest takeaways in all this is that there may not necessarily be a Trump scandal. But there seems to be, and it seems like the evidence is heading towards a Clinton-Obama scandal. My, how the worm has turned. For those of you under a rock, of course, former FBI Director James Comey goes to Congress and intimates, among other things, that A, he's a wimp, who's spineless and weak and can't stand to be in the same room as the President of the United States for some reason. But the biggest revelation that came out is that Director Comey, was ordered, according to his testimony, by then Attorney General Loretta Lynch to not call the Clinton investigation into her emails an investigation, but rather call it a matter. That's the big revelation that's coming out of this for me, to the point where even Dianne Feinstein is calling for an investigation into what Loretta Lynch did. That is a total 180 from where we started. And where we started was a Trump-Russia collusion allegation. And the reason why we've gotten to this point of hysteria, and where we went from hysteria basically down to much ado about nothing, in my opinion, is because of the propagation of fake news stories declaring that President Donald Trump was under investigation for alleged connections with Russia in the campaign. You want to run down the fake news, folks? Let's run it down right now. January 20th, Salon. FBI is leading an investigation into Donald Trump's connections with Russia. Then later on, March 20th, Center for American Progress. The FBI is investigating a sitting president. Been a long time since that happened, and that was on Twitter. Of course, March 20th, the big story from the New York Times, the failing New York Times, the organization that probably took the biggest hit from the Comey testimony that occurred last week. The headline, blaring on their front page and all over the interwebs, FBI is investigating Trump's Russia ties, Comey confirms. By the way, James Comey said, in the main, not true, and agreed with questioning from the committee and saying that it was almost completely false. The Times back then was saying that Mr. Comey placed a criminal investigation at the doorstep of the White House and said officers would pursue it no matter how long it takes. By the way, those sources, no one knows who they are, and no one has heard from them since Comey has said this was not true. Maybe someone should investigate the New York Times for fake news. Russell Berman in the Atlantic on the same day. It's official. The FBI is investigating Trump's links to Russia. Wrong. Huffington Post the same day. We have a president under investigation. This is Jason Lincoln's of the Huffington Post. Remember these names, folks. Remember these organizations that propagate these fake news stories, that seem to run with one sources, anonymous sources, and they just propagate their own thing like automatons. The New York Times said it, so that means HuffPost can say it. That means GQ Magazine can say it. That means the Daily Kos can say it. That means that just about the Atlantic can say it. Everyone can say it because the old gray lady said it. Speaking of which, Jack Moore, GQ Magazine, headline, James Comey confirms the FBI is investigating Trump's Russian connection. No mention of the anonymous sources in the headlines. Of course, everybody sees headlines. That's all we read in our little nanosecond social media worlds nowadays. It's absolutely disgusting that the headlines are running with these things without corroboration or confirmation. And they all turned out to be untrue. Daily Kos. Let's not mince words. Trump and cohort under big capital letters, FBI criminal investigation. Claiming that this is truth and fact. That there's a criminal investigation. There is no criminal investigation, Daily Kos, you idiots. You fake news propagators. Check your sources. Get your own sources. Here's a great one. Crooks and Liars, a blogger under the pseudonym Left of Center. By the way, folks, if you're getting your information from a blog where someone doesn't put their name to it, I suggest you check yourself. Because if they're not going to take responsibility by putting their own name to something, why should you even consider it as a source for your news? My name's Gene Baradelli. I run a polititainment show called Behind Enemy Lines Radio. Every now and then we get a little bit of fact. We'll get a scoop here or there. We'll get an interview that breaks news. But by no means are we a news source. I'm letting you know right now. We are op-ed. We are feature. We are polititainment. Don't trust us for news. Trust us for views. Trust us for opinion. And feel free to disagree with our opinion and back it up if you want. You can always let us know at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Whether or not you agree, disagree, you let us know. But the point is, search out real news. Watch out for things like anonymous sources. Some people know how to use anonymous sources well. Circa News, to me, has really shown that they can put together news stories that are, well ahead of the curve. That organization has been putting in some great work. Obviously has sources that are credible because the information has panned out in the future after the story is written, and we'll keep monitoring them. But Circa News, I give them credit. Hats off to them. But if you're getting your news from a guy that calls himself or herself Left of Center and works at a site called Crooks and Liars, and they quote other sources like MSDNC's Joe Scarborough, you know what? I think you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because that's not news. That's aggregation of news. That's taking someone else's work product and turning it into your own and using it to turn into your own story in order to get the clicks, to get the cheddar, to get the dollars. Slate, March 22nd, the president is under FBI investigation. Is this normal? The Guardian, March 22nd, Donald Trump is under investigation for ties to Russia. What happens now? Huffington Post again, March 22nd, Schumer, delay Gorsuch while Trump is under FBI investigation. Democracy Now! March 22nd. On the Schumer speech, Senator Schumer calls on Democrats to boycott Neil Gorsuch while Trump is under investigation. It goes on and on and on. Elizabeth Warren quoted in the same nonsense. Do you see how it's... When we talk about viral news, we talk about things spreading. Fake news travels like a virus. One person says it, or one organization says it, like the New York Times, and then all the bottom feeders and news aggregators and clickbait monsters out there try to get you to click on it, to put more money in their pocket for getting that extra page view for their advertiser, for themselves. And it spreads like a monolithic monster. We can keep going. America Blog. Here's one I never even heard of. May 9th, Trump fires FBI director. The man investigating Trump for treason. I mean, come on now. We can go on and on and on about fake news and MSDNC and all this other nonsense. And it is nonsense. Because those in the know, as James Comey said, and I'll give him credit for this and I agree with this, hopefully, and I'll preface it that way, those in the know don't tell. And those who tell are not necessarily in the know. James Comey's testimony did two things that I think are very important. One, put the focus where it belongs. The Clinton campaign, the connections to the Obama administration, the corroboration and collaboration that they did together with regards to her emails and with regards to coordination between the administration and the campaign, and putting the focus back onto the media themselves, the attacking media who seemingly have this motivation to take down Donald Trump for some reason. Maybe it's because he's not one of them, he's an outsider, quote unquote. Whatever it may be. The point is, it looks like the media got a whole bunch of humble pie today. Or I should say this week. I mean, we can talk about it later on. But the question then becomes, what are they going to do to fix their reputation? What did the New York Times do to try to make things better for themselves in this situation? Did they write a retraction? No. Did they acknowledge that they got caught up and made a mistake? No. They basically blamed they shot the messenger. The New York Post had a great op-ed this week, and it's called "The New York Times Needs to Save." No, it actually doesn't say that. The title of the article is "When is the New York Times going to take Comey's criticism seriously?" And John Crudell, it's an op-ed piece that was in the New York Post, runs through the New York Times' reaction to James Comey's testimony about their story. And what it comes down to is this. They're going to ignore and they're going to deflect. The deflection is the sources that they tried to get in touch with, they can't be found. What a shocker. The rats have left the sinking ship. I'm shocked by that. This is my shocked face on right now. Are you shocked? Because I'm shocked. It's absolutely ridiculous. The quote-unquote 4 current and former American officials that the Times used for this story could not immediately be reached after Comey's remarks. Odd, isn't it? Well, what about later on? Could the Times reach him the next day after the initial reaction to Comey, last week? Could they reach him over the weekend? Could they reach him later this week? We're not going to know that because you know what? They're not going to bother reaching out. They're fluffing it off and they're moving on. The Times buried Comey way back in the paper. Wasn't on the front page like when they said that the investigation was going on. The story was on page A21. For those of you who don't read the New York Times, and if you're listening to this show, I can understand that you most likely don't listen to listen.